apple.
What?
This is my new favorite animal, a shrimp. Yes, argue with the wall. This thing has so much aura. He can move faster than a clock. He can box, and he looks like a Monet painting. Peacock mantis shrimp, harlequin mantis shrimp, painted mantis shrimp, clown mantis shrimp, rainbow mantis shrimp, peacock odontodactyl, thumb splitter, mantis shrimp, or how I like to call him, submarine peacock. This little guy has been named a bunch throughout the years, but all those names stand for one thing, an angry bastard. And like, who can blame him? When you live inside a family of 4,000 different specimens, and you are the only one that's an active hunter, I would also question my mental sanity. Also because it's not like this thing is called mantis by any chance. It's called like that because it shares many similarities with the common praying mantis, mainly because of the looks of their eyes, and also because of how they hunt. But still, I'd like to clarify that there are some major differences between the two of them, because one of them impales you, the other instead punches you to the other world. But obviously the question comes naturally, because how the fuck does he do it? Since punching while being submerged is already hard by itself. Like, it is almost impossible to hurt someone with a punch underwater, and now you wanna tell me this fucker has made punching his primary go-to weapon? Well, because it's not a punch in its entirety, but instead it's a much more complex mechanism. For starters, let's address the elephant in the room. The thing he uses is a club. Yes, a club. The most hideous and terrible weapon ever created for combat. The peacock uses a reinvention of a classic club as we intend, but instead of wielding it as a weapon, he has it as a whole bone in his body. And like, I know I'm gonna sound nerdy when I say the numbers, but trust me, this thing is crazy scary. When he activates it, the acceleration of the club reaches 100,000 meters per second. To have a term of comparison, this is the same number that a bullet has when it leaves the barrel of a Glock. And when it hits the designed target, the total speed of it reaches 80 kilometers per hour, or to put it into freedom terms, 50 miles per hour. But not only that, since when the mantis hits you, he hits you with the strength of 1500 Newton of strength. And like, I don't think you understand how crazy is that. For an animal that weighs more or so 1 kilogram, to be able to produce that amount of strength practically whenever he wants is actually crazy. To make a comparison, this will be like if a normal human that weighs around 70 kilograms was able to punch through solid concrete at will, whenever he feels like it. And I'm not talking about scratching the wall, I'm talking about punching a hole through it. But okay, I guess that after he punches you, it ends there, right? No. Cause this madman has a plan B in case he doesn't get you on the spot. Since the shockwave is for sure gonna hit you. Let me break it down. When an object moves incredibly fast underwater, it moves a shitload of water, and water is much slower than air. So it is typical that when an object moves so fast around him or behind him, there is a pretty high chance that a pressure vacuum could be created. An area where the pressure gets so low that water around it starts to boil in just a few moments, creating a bubble of water vapor. But obviously this thing is unstable like Jenga after a few turns. So obviously when the club eventually slows down because it reached the target, the pressure starts to stabilize itself, making the bubble more and more unstable, until all of a sudden it explodes, hitting both prey and peacock at the same time. But wait, if it hits the peacock, that should hurt him, right? Yes, theoretically should damage both, but the peacock is an asshole, because throughout countless years of evolutionary work, it became immune to its own collateral damage. So yeah, in summary, the mantis shrimp is a predator so incredibly strong that even a full-blown T-Rex is like a chihuahua in comparison. But you know what? Being a self-propelled gun is only one of the few reasons why this peacock is so incredibly cool, cause his eyes are the most majestic thing you could ever see. They look just like the result of a bad trip, and in some aspects they also resemble the eyes of a classic mantis. But that's not the cool part. The cool part is that these eyes are way better than ours. And like, nothing to take away from our eyes, but from a pure evolutionary lens, these are way better, since they possess a way larger amount of photoreceptors than us. To be more precise, they have 12. while we only have 3. But let me be more petty and actually break it down. Typically, the human eye is able to deconstruct the colors that we receive on a daily basis into 3 different categories. L, the one that is used when we see extremely bright colors like red. M, the one that is used for colors in between that are not too bright nor too dull, for example a green. And then there is S, the one that's used for extremely dull colors like blue. Obviously then, these 3 cones activate themselves on a regular basis, while they manage themselves on their own, most of the times while even cooperating between each other, because obviously, unless you have a serious case of color blindness, you should be able to see many different shades of colors. And that's basically because of them. The mantis shrimp is basically this, but with an upgrade, because instead of having just 3 cones for everything, he has 12 different cones, and that allows him to dissect every single color much better than we could ever. And that allows them to see things we are not able to, for example ultraviolet or polarized light. So basically, if we brought one of these guys on land and we let him see a rainbow, he would have the best experience of his life? Well, yes and no. While yes, in theory they could, but in practice that's simply impossible. Like, for how their eyes are wired, they could be able to perceive the outside world extremely cleanly, but since their brain is too underdeveloped, they simply can't reorganize that amount of information inside their brains. And like, even if they had the possibility, why would they do it? From an evolutionary standpoint, if that doesn't give you any advantages for surviving, why would you consider something like that? Like, okay, from our perspective they don't say shit in comparison, but it's not like it made them less suited for survival. So yeah, that's the end of the video. Even though I feel like I could have talked more about some more interesting facts, like how they can maintain long-term relationships, or how they have sex, or maybe even about their family members that have claws instead of clubs. But that's a bit too much, and I don't want to bore you any further. So peace out.